Matt Mercer is playing more Magic the Gathering, Magic the Gathering finally bans the One Ring, and the Lord of the Rings hits a new low.
I wish the ring had never come to me.
Everything is connected on Tabletop News Tuesday, our first look at the week's biggest fantasy and TTRPG news. But before we break down all those big stories, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and maybe even that notification bell, to help us keep the channel growing. And then, let's dive into the news.
Issue number 1 is the first issue we're going to talk about.
Matt Mercer's love affair with Magic the Gathering, and specifically its Commander format, continues, as this week he joined the massive charity stream run by Dr. Lupo, which raised over $1 million for St. Jude's Children's Hospital as an announcer for a game of Commander. Matt and Lupo acted as the MCs of the Commander game, which featured their friends from the Commander at Home YouTube channel, and subscribers could donate $100 to St. Jude to make Matt do one of his voices while he described the action, with the first donation coming immediately as the broadcast started with fans donating to make Matt describe the setup of the game as Henry Crabgrass.
I believe the players have drawn their hands and consenting to destroy each other via Magic the Gathering.
The fans also wanted to know if Dr. Lupo, who's been doing projects with Matt Mercer since they teamed up for some Among Us games back in 2020, and also runs his own D&D game on stream, would show up on Critical Role at some point, and Matt made sure to let fans know that that door was still open. But this marks the third major Magic the Gathering project for Matt Mercer in the last 2 months, after playing a Commander game on Everything is Content for Critical Role, and appearing on the Commander at Home YouTube channel, so don't be shocked if you see more Magic-based content from Mercer in 2025, as it's clear he's deep in the Magic sauce.
Magic the Gathering.
And speaking of Magic, Wizards of the Coast has finally banned the One Ring card in Magic the Gathering Modern, as they've announced their latest wave of bans and unbans for their massively popular card game yesterday. As for why the One Ring, which costs 4 colorless mana and can grant you escalating card draw and protection from everything, was banned, the answer's pretty simple. Its nearly 60% inclusion rate in decks in modern events is more than most lands, and there was basically no reason not to run 4 copies of the incredibly powerful card in every single deck since it was colorless and any deck could play it. The impact on the card's price has been immediate, with it selling for around $100 yesterday and down to barely over $50 today, but the move seems to have been met with pretty universal praise from the Magic community, who recognized how out of control the One Ring had gotten now that they saw it in every single deck they played against. Magic also unbanned the controversial Splinter Twins enchantment, which was part of a turn 3 infinite creature combo with Pestermite that took down several major events in 2016 before it got banned, so it will be interesting to see how long Wizards decides to keep Splinter Twin around this time in 2025.
Check this out.
And speaking of the One Ring, Lord of the Rings has hit an unfortunate new milestone, as their second movie in a row has been certified rotten by Rotten Tomatoes. The War of the Rohirrim has just become the worst reviewed Lord of the Rings movie during the entire Peter Jackson era, beating out even the much maligned The Hobbit: The Battle of Five Armies, which was also certified rotten when it released in 2014. So is The Lord of the Rings losing its box office magic, or is something else at play here? Well, it turns out that The War of the Rohirrim, which also set a new record for the lowest box office of any Tolkien movie in the Peter Jackson era, may never have been intended to be a success. Reports are that the new anime, which only made $4.6 million on a $30 million budget so far, was actually rushed out and fast-tracked to get into theaters in time for New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers to maintain the rights to the Lord of the Rings franchise. According to Variety, the studios were at risk of losing their rights since they hadn't created a Tolkien film in 10 years, 2014's unfortunate The Battle of the Five Armies. So the War of the Rohirrim was rushed out to make sure they could keep control of the rights, while Andy Serkis worked on his upcoming The Hunt for Gollum and other Lord of the Rings live-action films. So while War of the Rohirrim may not be a critical or commercial success as fans had hoped, it looks like New Line and Warner Brothers didn't really need it to be. They just needed it to hit theaters to keep the franchise and their cash cow alive for the future.
And that is an encouraging thought.
And finally, the actress behind Shadowheart, God's favorite princess in Baldur's Gate 3, had a warning for Hasbro as she revealed she was down to keep playing her character outside of the video game. Jennifer English, who voices the iconic Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, said she would love to return to the role after Baldur's Gate 3, but warned Hasbro not to mess it up and, quote, make her into a cartoon. In fact, Jennifer reveals that the entire main voice cast of Baldur's Gate 3 would love to keep bringing their characters back outside of the video game, but that Hasbro would have to make sure whatever project it was beautifully written and honored the game's audience and the forward thinking that Larian Studios showed when they created it. We know that D&D and Hasbro are keen to keep bringing the Baldur's Gate 3 characters back, as the actors have reprised their roles in several official D&D actual play events this year, and it seems like as long as the cast's conditions are met, we could see Shadowheart, Karlach, Asterion, and the rest of the gang showing up in new D&D projects in 2025 and beyond. And that's all we have for Tabletop News Tuesday this week. Let us know what your favorite segment was down in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.